Page number 77, Knowledge in the Head and in the World, Chapter 3. So, Chapter 1 and 2 introduce a wide range of fundamental design principles derived from research on human cognition and emotion. This chapter shows how knowledge in the world combines with the knowledge in the head. Knowledge in the head is the knowledge in the human memory system. So, this chapter contains a brief review of the critical aspect of memory necessary for the design of usable products. I emphasize that for practical purpose we do not need to know the detail of the scientific theories, but simpler, more general, useful approximation. Simplified models are the successful key to successful application. The chapter concludes with a discussion of how natural mapping present information in the world in a manner readily interpreted and usable. Knowledge in the head. Whenever people needed to talk to do task is readily available in the world, the need for us to learn it diminishes. For example, we lack knowledge about common coins, even though we recognize them just fine. In knowing what our currency looks like, we don't know the detail and all the details. Simply sufficient knowledge to distinguish one value of currency from another. Only a small minority of people know enough to distinguish counterfeit from legitimate money. Our consider typing. Many typists have not memorized the keyboard. Usually each key is labeled so typists can hunt and peck letter by letter, relying on knowledge in the world and minimizing the time required for learning. The people in that such typing is slow and difficult. With experience, of course, hunt and peckers learn the position of the keys on the keyboard even without instruction, and typing speed increases notably, quickly surpassing handwriting speed and for some reaching quite a respectable rate. Peripheral vision and feels of the keyboard provide some knowledge about key location. Frequently used key become completely learned. Infrequently used key are not learned well, and the other key are partially learned. But as long as the typist need to watch the keyboard, the speed is limited. The knowledge is still mostly in the world, not in the head. If the person needs to type large amount of material regularly, further investment is worthwhile. A course, a book, or an interactive program. The important thing is to learn the proper placement of fingers on the keyboard, to learn to type without looking, to get knowledge about the keyboard from the world into the head. It takes a few weeks to learn the system and several months of practice to become expert, but the payoff for all the effort is increased typing speed, in increased accuracy, and decreased mental load and effort at time of typing. We only need to remember sufficient knowledge to let us get our tasks done. Because so much knowledge is available in the environment, it is surprisingly how little we need to learn. This is one reason people can function well in their environment and still unable to describe what they do. People function through their use of two kinds of knowledge: knowledge of and knowledge how. Knowledge of what psychologists can declarative knowledge includes the knowledge of the fact and rule. Stop at red lights. New York City is the north of Rome. China has twice as many people as India. To get the key out of ignition of Saab car, the gear shift must be in reverse. Declarative knowledge is knowledge to write and to teach. Note that knowledge of the rules does not mean they are followed. The driver in many cities are often quite knowledgeable about the official driving regulation, but they do not necessarily obey them. Moreover, the knowledge does not have to be true. New York City is actually south of Rome. China has only slightly more people than India, roughly 10%. People may know many things, that does not mean they are true. Knowledge, how what psychologists call procedural knowledge, is the knowledge that enables a person to be a skilled musician, to return a serve in tennis, or to move the tongue properly when saying the phrase frightening witches. Procedural knowledge is difficult or impossible to write down and difficult to teach. It is best taught by demonstration and best learned through practice. Even the best teacher cannot usually describe what they are doing. Procedural knowledge is likely subconscious, residing at the behavioral level of processing. Knowledge in the world is usually how to come by. Signifiers, knowledge, constraint, and natural mapping are all perceivable cues that act as knowledge in the world. This type of knowledge occurs so commonly that we take it for granted. It is everywhere. The location of the letter on the keyboard, the light and label on the control that reminds us their purpose and give information about the current state of the device. Industrial equipment is replicated with signal lights, indicators, and other reminders. We make extensive use of letter notes. We place items in specific location as reminders. In general, people structure their environment to provide a considerable amount of the knowledge required for something to be remembered. Many organize their life spatially, spatially in the world, creating a pile here and a pile there, each indicating some activities to be done, some event in progress. Probably everybody uses such a strategy to some extent. Look around you at variety of the ways people arrange their room and desk. Many styles of organizations are possible, but invariably the physical layout and visibility of the item convey information about relative importance. When precision is unexpectedly required, normally people do not need precise in their judgment. All that is needed is the combination of knowledge in the world and in the head that makes decision unambiguous. Everything works for fine unless the environment changes so that the combined knowledge is no longer sufficient. That can lead to havoc. At least three countries discovered that this fact the hard way. The United States become its when it's introduced the Susan B. Anthony $1 coin, Great Britain £1 coin before the switch to decimal currency, and France a 10 franc coin before the conversion to the common European currency, the euro. The US dollar coin was confused with the existing 25-cent piece, the quarter, and the British pound coin with the 5 pence piece that had the same diameter. Here is what happened in France. Paris, with a good deal of fanfare, the French government released the new 10 franc coin, worth a little more than $150, on October 22nd, 1986. The public faced at it way it began confusing it so quickly with the half franc worth only 8 cents that a crescendo of fury and ridicule fell on the government and the coin. 5 weeks later, Ministry of Finance Edward Baradar suspended circulation of the coins. Within another 4 weeks, he cancelled it altogether. In retrospect, the French decision seems so foolish that it is hard to fathom how it could have been made. After much study, designers came with a silver color coin made of nickel and featuring a modernistic drawing by artist Joachim Gimnez of a Gallic rooster on one side and of Marina, the female symbol of French Republic, on the other. The coin was light, sported special ridges on its rim for easy reading by electronic vending machines, and seemed tough to counterfeit. But the designers and bureaucrats were obviously so excited by their creation that they ignored or refused to accept that the new coin's similarity to the hundreds of millions of silver-colored nickel-based half-franc coin in circulation, whose size and weight were perilously similar. The confusion probably occurred by the user of the coin had already formed representation in their memories that were only sufficiently precise to distinguish the coin that they were accustomed to using. Psychological research suggests that people maintain only partial description of the things to be remembered. In the three example of a new coin introduced in United States, Great Britain and France, the description formed to distinguish among national currency were not precise enough to distinguish between a new coin or at least one of the old coins. Suppose I keep all my notes in a small red notebook. If this is only my notebook, I can describe it simply as my notebook. If I buy several more notebooks, the description earlier will no longer work. Now I must identify the first one as small or red, or maybe both small and red. Red, both small and red, whichever allows me to distinguish it from the other. But what if acquired several small red notebook? Now I must find some of other means of describing the first book, adding to the richness of the description and to the ability to discriminate among the several similar items. Description needs discriminate other among the choices in front of me. But what works for one purpose may not for another. Not all similar looking item causes confusion. In updating the edition of the book, I searched to see whether there might be more recent example of the coin confusion. I found this interesting item on the website Wikicoins. Someday a leading psychologist may weigh in on one of the perplexing question of our time. Public was if the American public was constantly confusing the Susan B. Anthony dollar with the roughly similar size quarter, how come they were not also constantly confusing the $20 bill with the identical size $1 bill? Here is the answer. Why not any confusion? We learn to discriminate among things by looking for distinguishing feature. In the United States, size is one major way of distinguishing among coins, but not among paper money. With paper money, all the bills are same size, so Americans ignore size and look at the printed number and images. Hence, we confuse similar size American coins, but only seldom confuse similar size American bills. But people who come from a country that uses size and colors of the paper money to distinguish among the amounts, for example Great Britain or any country that uses the euro, have learned to use the size and color to distinguish among paper money and therefore are invariably confused when dealing with the bill from the United States. More confirmatory evidence comes from the fact that although long-term residents of Britain complained that they cursed the £1 coin with the 5 pence coin, newcomers and children did not have the same confusion. This is because the long-term residents were working with their original set of descriptions, which did not easily accommodate the distinction between these two coins. Newcomers, however, started off with no perception and therefore formed a set of description to distinguish among all the coins. In this situation, £1 coin offers no particular problem. In the United States, Susan B. Anthony dollar coin never became popular and is no longer being made, so the equivalent observation cannot be made. What gets confused depends heavily upon history, the aspect that have allowed us to distinguish among the object in the past. When the rules for discrimination change, People can become confused and make errors. With time, they will adjust and learn to discriminate just fine and may even forget the initial period of confusion. The problem is that in many circumstances, especially one as politically charged as the size, cup, and color of currency, the public's outrage prevents calm discussion and does not allow for any adjustment time. Consider this as an example of design principle interacting with the messy practicality of the real world. What appears good in printing principle can sometimes fail when introduced to the world. Sometimes bad products succeed and good products fail. The world is complex. Constraint, simplify memory. Before widespread literacy and especially before the advent of sound recording devices, performers traveled from villages to villages reciting epic poems thousands of lines long. This tradition still exists in some societies. How do people memorize such a voluminous amount of material? Do some people have huge amount of knowledge in their head? Not really. It turns out that external constraints exert control over the permissible choices of the word, thus dramatically reducing the memory load. One of the secret comes from the powerful constraint of poetry. That's page number 82, and we'll continue page number 83 tomorrow. Thank you.